All right, we are live. My name is Jamie J. I'm the CEO and founder and shareholder of Bottleneck Distant Assistance, where we help stop the bottleneck in your business. And this is Live with Bottleneck, where I have wonderful conversations, very insightful conversations with people that I really look up to, people that are doing some incredible things in the world of business and in life. So I want to go ahead and get this thing cranking and let's go. So I'm going to play the intro here, and we'll be ready to rock and roll in about 38 seconds. So if you're on YouTube, Facebook, or LinkedIn, especially on Facebook, you're going to have to go to the link just above the description there on StreamYard.com/Facebook and let Facebook know, or let StreamYard know, that it's okay for you to comment. If you have any comments or questions during our live conversation today, please feel free to ask away, and I'll post it on the live video here. If you're watching this in the replay, then go ahead and leave a comment, and whatever questions you have, I'll make sure to forward those off to Ed. So let's go ahead and get this thing started. All right. Hello, my name is Jamie J., host of Live with Bottleneck, founder of Bottleneck Distant Assistance, as well as a shareholder. And we're going to talk today all about how a different cool way of how to stop the bottleneck in your business and perhaps in your life. We are talking today none other than to Ed Evarts. He's the founder and president of Accelius Leadership Development. We're going to talk about, can consulting firms experience bottlenecks and how to navigate them. And we'll talk about a couple other things as well. We'll talk about a couple of books that Ed's written. And Ed is a leadership coach. He's a team coach. He's a strategist, podcast host, and author who helps successful leaders build their self-awareness so they can self-manage more effectively. I just want to point out something really fast. So when we have a guest on this podcast, we ask them to provide us with a topic they would like to talk about and also a brief bio. I want to let everybody know here, if you're watching this and you're going to be going out on other things, this is a great example of what a bio should look like. Very short, very concise. You know everything that Ed is all about. And it doesn't take up a lot of room or space in our head. So kudos to Ed for that. Without any further ado, let's meet Ed. How are you, sir?
Fantastic, Jamie. It's nothing like starting a podcast conversations with flattery. So I appreciate the observation you had of my bio.
Oh my gosh, most definitely. Yeah, I'm really excited to chat with you. I was so excited. I came on yesterday expecting our call to be out, and I was like, oh, sorry about that. But I wonder if maybe for those of the people that may not know who Ed Evarts is of Accelius, maybe you could give us a little bit of background and kind of tell us what you've been up to and what you're doing now.
Well, I spent about 25 years in corporate America, working mostly in retailing organizations. And then in my last 10 years, working for a business-to-business services company. I left that career path in 2008 and made a decision to transition to my own independent practice, providing, when I first started, just about anything that anybody would pay me for. And then today have continued to fine tune it so that I do the three things that you mentioned earlier. I do leadership coaching, so that's working one-on-one with successful leaders on how to be more successful. I do team coaching because we're all on teams and we want to ensure that that time we spend together is productive and effective. And oftentimes you need external help to get you there. And then I do business strategy. So I work with organizations that are roughly $5 to $10 million in revenue that are at a pivot point, either due to new geography or new services or new tools or things that they're pursuing, and they don't know how to move forward in effective ways. And so again, they bring somebody outside in order to do that. I work in the Boston area and have led this practice for about 14 years.
Wow, 14 years. Holy cow, congratulations. See, here I thought, man, I went out on my own after 12 years in corporate America in 2006. I was a trailblazer. So kudos to you. And I hear what you said when I first went out on my own. Actually, it was the last company that I worked for was my first client, but I pretty much said yes to everything. Can you do this? Yes. And then I go figure it out, figure out what I'm doing. And it really has come 15 years later. I'm doing something I never knew I would have been doing
Right.
back in 2006. Did you have a similar experience?
Definitely. I could never have projected 14 years ago what I would be doing today. And I knew I wanted to, in a way, give back. So take the 25 years of experience I had had providing services and solutions to all sorts of functional areas within a business, and then helping others who were experiencing similar things navigate it more effectively. So I knew I wanted to do that. But today, doing the three things that I listed, you mentioned the books that I've written, the podcast that I host is a fantastic experience. I never would have guessed that those things would have been playing a role in my life today. So sometimes the journey we're on take us in new and unique ways, and we just need to enjoy the ride.
Oh, amen. You couldn't have said it any better. What's the name of your podcast?
So the podcast is Be Brave at Work.
Be Brave at Work. Okay. And that's where this website is, Be Brave at Work. That's the podcast right there, right?
Right. And if you go to that location, you'll see all of the recordings that we've done. I think I've recorded nowhere near your number, but I've done about 185 and about 170 of them are posted. So
wow.
these are all fantastic conversations, roughly about 20 minutes long, about how people experience bravery in the workplace and lessons that they want to help others think about as they're navigating their own opportunities for bravery.
That is so cool. Yeah, you can see here you've been around. Congratulations on the consistency.
Thank you. I mean, one significant difference that people could probably see is that I just recently shaved. So there are new photos coming up soon of me without the beard, but that's me about at least 2 weeks ago and before.
Hey, congratulations. I'm afraid of shaving. Oh, well, this is great. So I do want to get into talking about the bottlenecks associated with consulting and things like that for other people and how you break down how you coach and work with people. But first and foremost, I want to say thank you so much for being a published author and actually writing the books, more importantly, publishing those so that other people can share in your expertise. As an author, I understand the trials and tribulations that it was rough for me to just get one, let alone 3 books out. So kudos to you. What inspired you to write your most recent book, Drive Your Career?
Yeah, my first book, Raise Your Visibility and Value, really was a reflection of my 25 years in corporate America. And when I left my last employer, it was during that kind of 2008 recession, and networking was everywhere. And so I wanted to share some of the lessons and expectations that people might have as they start transitioning to their next opportunity. Similarly, in 2020, I wanted to take the 13 years of experience that I had with coaching and working with individuals. And I noticed, Jamie, that there were certain stories that came up again and again and again with people, no matter who they were. They could have been a company president. They could have been a frontline supervisor. I didn't bring them up. They came up in their stories. And I said, well, here's something you might think about, or here's something that might help you. And, I had what I like to call one of those shower moments where I said, maybe this could be a great book where I share these 9 stories because they keep coming up again and again. So, I think there's something to them with others. And so that inspired me to craft the book, Drive Your Career, and share these 9 ways that people can take responsibility for their own success. And if there's any word in the chapter that I stress and that I think is most important, is in today's workplace, you own your own success. There was a time where your employer took care of you and provided you everything, or training, and set you up in structured programs, et cetera. Those don't exist to the same degree they used to. And now you have to take responsibility for your own success. And that's what I hope the book inspires people to do.
Well, thank you for sharing. And you're right. One of my favorite sayings is do something as if it's the last time you're ever going to do it, meaning document or write a book. Write a book like what you did. And that's basically how I got a lot of the information, was because it was the same things that were being asked to me. And that's I had this, I don't know if I was necessarily in a shower when I had that epiphany, but it was something I realized it very much in the same way. So thanks for sharing that. So, can you tell us a little bit about some of the things that you've seen specifically over this past year? I know, obviously, there's this little thing. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It was COVID. It was COVID-19. It was a
Haven't
pretty
heard
big.
of it.
Yeah. So I'm telling everybody because I thought more people would know about this, but I'm seeing a lot of similarities and challenges that people are experiencing because lives have been dramatically shifted in a ton of different ways. But have you seen anything over the course of, say, the last year, 18 months, that you've seen problems happening either with a person, an organization, or a team?
Definitely. And, when I think back on the pandemic, one of the important characteristics of it is that it was unplanned for and unexpected. As we all know, the last type of global pandemic was 1918, which was way before I think any of us were born. So we had very little memory. And of course, we weren't focused on something of this nature, right? So it was completely unexpected and completely unplanned for. And so organizations really were making decisions in the moment about how to move forward and tried to do so in the best way possible. So there's a couple of topics that my business strategy clients are struggling with today. One is, how to respectfully kind of get people back to work or try to get things back the way they were before the pandemic hit. The infamous M word that's out there right now, mandate, is not having the positive effect that everybody thought it would. So these are challenging situations. There are a million stories about people and scenarios and situations that they're trying to navigate through. And, through time and conversation and exploration, we'll figure them out, but they're very, very hard things to do. The second thing is just the impact of real estate. After payroll, real estate oftentimes is the second largest P&L expense. And companies today, because of the ability to work from home technologically, are questioning, do we need to have this beautiful downtown Boston office building that's 6 floors and costs a fortune, or can we go to 3 floors, unload that expense and let people work from home, et cetera? You might recall, 10 years ago, if you wanted to work from home even for a day, it was almost impossible to ask, right? You felt odd asking, can I work from home for a day? Today, everybody is doing it and everyone is expecting it. And so these are the types of challenges that many businesses and many people are trying to navigate through. And there is no easy answer. There is no answer out there on what to do and how to do it.
And you're right. Yes, I think I mean, it was funny. One of my friends said, Jamie, you've been social distancing before social distancing was a thing. I was working remotely since 2006. And yes, I've seen challenges that come along with that. I've also noticed a couple of other things that people didn't really know what they didn't know. There was a chasm that we kind of had to cross over to kind of feel this whole thing out. And I really appreciate the fact that you said, in essence, I'm paraphrasing here a bit, but it's a different scenario for different people depending on, what is happening in their world. One of the biggest challenges I think many people have is isolation, and how to deal with that and overcome that and still be positive and still try and find their footing, because we're social beings, right? Can you maybe address that in any way, especially when it comes to team dynamics?
Well, there's a couple of things that have surfaced. One of them is not necessarily positive, which is well, if they're doing it, I want to do it, right? So if they get to work from home, I should work from home. Different people have different scenarios, and there are people who can work from home very effectively, and there are people who can't, right? So it's not a one size fits all, but it's creating this conflict and struggle in the workplace because of this basic premise. If they get to do it, I want to do it. And then, as you're mentioning, we are social beings, and companies are trying to figure out, how do we maintain this connectedness that we believe that we need to have while
Culture.
people are so distributed. And some organizations are trying to get everyone back to work, again, respectfully and professionally. Some want people to work from home, but come together 2 or 3 times a year together and meet in a common place, a town hall or a classic movie theater, or things of that nature, and just get them together so they can see each other. I think most people, especially those that have a preference for extroversion, want to connect with others and see other people on a regular basis, and it's hard. So again, there is no one answer for each of these situations. You have to really assess your scenario and think creatively about, how do we maintain social connectedness? How do we keep people engaged and focused on what we want to achieve and how we want to be perceived in the marketplace, while keeping everyone 6 feet from each other, working from home, etc.
Thank you for sharing that. I interviewed a gentleman. He worked at a company. He was, I believe he was one of the co-founders of a company called Dojo.co, and they did a research study on a software company, and they had about 200 employees. And what they found was that a lot of them were developers, and so they were developing code like crazy. When COVID hit and they were all kind of sent home, they had never seen the developers become more productive, ever. But they had a problem. They couldn't figure out why the new versions of their software were taking longer to achieve. So after communicating with them, they found out that they were managing so much time on the bugs of different developers because they weren't connected, they weren't working together. So they would be writing their own codes and trying to put them together. But since they didn't have that communication, in-person communication, it was actually deterring the production levels. Even though independently they were more productive, as a team they were not. So they figured out a way of what they called this hybrid future of work model, to where you could bring in a couple of teams, maybe sales and marketing or this and that, and these people would come in on the same days. But more importantly, they identified the people that really thrived working from remotely, and they loved it and they enjoyed it. And so they were able to identify, in this case, it was about 10%. I think it was about 10% of the employees were able to work from home 100% of the time. And that's, I just think, a really great example of what you just kind of talked about. You have to look at each scenario and see what's happening there, and then make an educated decision. And guess what? Every decision we make may not work out, but I think we go into it with a mindset like, yeah, you know what? Let's try this. And just give everybody a level, kind of a little leader saying, hey, this is what you can expect to have happen. If not, please give me feedback. I think this is a really good opportunity for those of us that are aware to really double down on culture. I always say, if a sailor's not going to be made a sailor, sailing on a beautiful day in a calm water, they're going to be made a sailor when they hit that first storm and make it through.
Right. A colleague of mine used to say, anyone can manage when managing is easy. It's when managing is tough that managers get born. So, going back to your scenario just for a moment, thinking about the differences that need to exist with different people are super important, and recognizing that there are some people who can work from home very effectively. And this may have been true even pre-pandemic, and there are others who can't. And I have had client companies who find that working from home works really well for them. It wasn't something they would have done, but because of the pandemic, they had no choice. But because of the nature of their business, they've had negative or non-impact to what they do and how they do it. There are others who like to know that people are working from 9 to 5 and worry that we're taking advantage of it, and we're running to the dry cleaners, and we're running to the grocery store, and we're taking all this time off. Basic human behavior. If I call you and you don't answer, you must be watching Oprah. You're not on another call, right? It's never positive observations. It's always, what's wrong? Why isn't this working? We liked the idea that we knew where everyone was, and if we had an office and everyone was there, we knew they were there, and we didn't have to worry about what they were doing or how they were doing it, even though I'm sure they were still, playing solitaire every once in a while, et cetera. But, by virtue of the fact that I can't see you, I'm going to worry now that what you're doing and how you're doing it is less productive.
What do you do in that situation as a leader?
Well, that's the $1 million question, right?
Yeah, I think we lost you just for a second, but you said that's the $1 million question. I know you'll pop back on here for a second, But the problem with that is that if you don't trust, right? If you don't trust the people that you're working with, that's a problem or a challenge you may run into. So I think trust is a really, really important aspect of this. And I think that's pretty much what you need to do in order to kind of bypass that. And you're back, Ed. So you left off with that's the $1 million question, and I think the next thing I said was, I think the answer to that $1 million question is trust and culture, and not micromanaging and all of that. Plus, if you're micromanaging in the first place, how productive is that of an environment of culturally and all of that I would feel challenged. And as a matter of fact, and I have to say this, God bless everybody that's in corporate America that enjoys it. Good for you. Go for it. Me, I didn't fit. Square peg, round hole. I was in it for 12 years. Took me 11 years to figure out how to get out. And when I got out, I really started thriving. I loved it. But I had a hard time in it because I felt a toxic culture of where I was. That's just my experience. But what do you say about that as far as trust and culture when it comes to kind of just embracing the scenario that we have?
Well, this is one of the challenges of the pandemic, because as we talked about earlier, it was unexpected and unplanned for. And as you know, there are workplaces that say, Jamie, I don't care when you work, as long as you get done everything that you're supposed to get done and it's done well. You can work from midnight to 8 a.m. I mean, I don't care when you're working, as long as you're happy and that you feel valued and you get your work done. And of course, on the other end of the spectrum, there are companies that are Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, you need to be in the office and working, et cetera. So, we're now being forced to think a little bit about this, and this hybrid model is being tossed upon us unrequestedly, if that's a word, to think about how we can navigate and manage people effectively. So we now have to think about it and say, how can I trust people? How can we create a culture around what it is we want to achieve? I think another important piece is setting expectations. You work from home. I'm not there to observe you, 24/7, but here are the expectations we have of you. And as long as you can achieve those expectations, as long as you enjoy and can help our culture grow, I will trust that what you're doing and how you're doing it is fantastic. So these are intangible connections, right, with people, and that scares people a little bit because I can't see you all the time. And so I have to practice it and I have to get through it effectively in order to ensure that you are achieving what we expect you to achieve as an employee in the company, even if I can't see you all day.
I love that. We've identified 3 things for every single task that's delegated that really helps us grow that trust. The other thing is everybody on our team can make their own decision. They don't have to run it by me, because I tell them the first thing you're going to do if you make a decision, we're not going to go bankrupt. But if it's a wrong one, let's talk about it. Let's figure it out and figure out how not to make that mistake. That empowers them to feel more like, wow, their voice matters, their brain matters. So that helps with the trust factor. But when we assign it and delegate a task, the first thing is we want to make sure we name that task so everybody knows that task is named. The second thing we do is we make sure that task is repeated back to us or documented, is sent to us saying, is this exactly what you're asking me to do? Yes. Okay, my trust just went up a little bit more. I now know that they're doing it. The third thing is, when is that task done? Establish a signal. That way, when I know and you know, no matter where we are in this world, that we know that task is complete, no matter how big or small. And we found that that's really helped that trust factor increase. And we are 100% distributed workforce. We are 100% remote. And we found that that's been really helpful. And when we've shared that with our other organizations, it's really helped them learn how to trust another person. We don't even do time tracking here. That's how much we trust everyone on our team. So do you have any little neat things like that you can share, little tips?
Well, first off, I think what you have created is a culture that honors and respects and role models what it is you're looking for others to do, including the behavior of not tracking time, right? There are companies that track time down to the minute because that's how they work. For example, a law firm, that's how they bill a client is by tracking every half hour that you spend with them, et cetera. So it's great that you've had that model. And, part of what you're also talking about, which I help people who view themselves or get feedback that they're micromanagers, is to move to what I call a milestone manager, where I don't want to know all of the details of what you're doing. There's two things I want to know. I want to know where we are at certain points in the process, and these are milestone points, right? Big points where we need to be in respect to moving forward. And I want to hear from you in advance if you're experiencing any difficulty in getting there. So don't, if a milestone is due on Friday, don't walk into my office that Friday and say, well, we didn't hit it. And I'd say, well, when did you know that? Well, probably a couple of weeks ago. Well, why didn't you come to me a couple of weeks ago, right? So, we need to ensure that we're having really good conversations with people, especially if we're working hybridly, to ensure that we are managing the milestones, and that if I don't think I'm going to hit it, I come to you early so we can self-correct or adjust, and we continue to make progress.
I love that. Much in the same way you need to communicate effectively with your clients, you need to do so probably even more with the internal team to keep it going. I think being comfortable with conversations too, whether it's on Zoom or not, it is like us on live stream. Like, it's conversations are empowering, and it's like you're learning and having a little bit of fun, and we're learning personalities a little bit better. And I almost think if you pull out the silver linings of this whole chaotic last year and a half, I think building relationships remotely and be more intentional about that as in some ways kind of shaped us and made the communication even better, because we were almost forced to systemize and process and establish workflows, wherein before, work from home policies weren't really a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I will tell you, as organizations get bigger, conversations and relationships become fewer. And, I can remember working at organizations that were very large, and I'm self-reflecting in this moment, but I don't think I ever had like a conversation with my boss about, how their weekend was or what hobbies they like and what they, right? We talked about projects, we talked about goals, we talked about situations that we were working on with clients. We never had conversations about things, and hence it influences in a negative way your relationship. You definitely want to have a positive relationship with people you work with. You don't have to be best friends, but you want to ensure that there's some dimension to the relationship, and it's not just the business piece, right? That there's more to you than this aspect of what you're working on. And so I love those key words, Jamie, you just shared: conversation, relationship. I'd ask our listeners, when's the last time, if you work for a really big company, when's the last time you had a conversation with somebody who reports to you, or a conversation with your boss? My guess would be, it's not going to be a huge number.
Yeah. I would agree. Because I know one manager I had a good kind of relationship with, but other than that, far and few between. So I'm right there with you. So where is someone at in their life where they would really benefit from talking to Ed?
So the only way I can answer that question is that point in time is different for everyone. And it really comes at a point in time where your self-awareness is telling you that, here's where you should be and here's where you are, right? You're somewhere different in that particular experience that you're having. Sometimes it may be mandated, and other times it might be self-generated. But, if people are feeling stagnant, frustrated, not where they think they should be professionally, whatever these feelings are, even if they're very successful but believe certain areas need polish in order to get to the next level, they don't have to speak to me, but they should speak with somebody who's objective and candid to help them think about it and get it out of their head so they can make positive progress. Oftentimes we think we have all the answers, and we don't. We don't have all the answers, and we need help from somebody else in order to get clarity so that we can make good progress moving forward.
And what kind of role is this person in?
Oh, it can be any role. I mean, I personally have worked with frontline supervisors all the way up to president. And, presidents are always interesting because we also culturally believe that the higher you are in a company, the more you know. And most presidents that I have that I've worked with would laugh at that and say, I know hardly anything, right? And respect to it. I know a lot about relationships. I know a lot about fundraising, but I don't know anything about finance. Thank God we have a great finance team, or I don't know anything about marketing, et cetera. So, they are caught in between a rock and the hard place because they don't have all the answers and they're not perfect, yet everybody thinks they are. And so they don't get candid feedback from people because they don't think it'll be well received. Again, a large piece of it is based on the relationship you have with that person. You want to have a good relationship in order to provide them feedback. But this experience, Jamie, in working with somebody, whether it's a executive coach, a business coach, a life coach, whomever it might be, is really helpful to help you think about and put on a whiteboard ideas that you can pursue in order to ensure that you are in charge of your development, career, growth, et cetera.
Oh, I love that. Wow. Thank you so much. This has been a great conversation. I think a nice timing too, a nice top of mind kind of awareness conversation. So hopefully this might motivate someone to take some action. How do people get in touch with you?
The best place to go is my website, which is Excelius.com. I think you had it down there. EXCELLIUS.com. There's everything Ed Evarts there that you need to know. And people can contact me through the website.
So they go to the website there and they get to learn all about Ed Evarts and Excelius. And I believe that would be, I want to share your site. Can you see the site on there?
Sure. And there's my new picture without.
There it is. You weren't lying, boy. That was quick.
We're not messing around.
Yep. So that's Excelius.com. Go there and check it out. You can find out all things Ed. Ed, is there anything else you'd like to say? Maybe some words of wisdom before we wrap?
Well, I would just encourage listeners, Jamie, to take a few minutes and think about their career, think about where they are. If they're in a great place, good. Think about why you're in a good place so you can continue to repeat those behaviors to make good progress. If you don't think you're in a good place, think about why you're not in a good place. You always need to be focused on the future and taking steps to drive your career and move in the direction that you want to go. So the first step is self-reflection. And as I have done, and I would encourage anybody that I know to do, reflect a little bit on where you are and decide what your next steps might be.
I love that. Reflect. Take it. That's a great action item. So take some time today. Reflect on where you're at in your life. Think about it. Maybe a good opportunity for some deep work, huh? A deep work session.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, do you have just a moment, Ed, so I can wrap up really quick?
I sure do, Jamie. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. 1 second there, and I will go ahead and wrap up as soon as I get the right frames going here. There we go. I just wanted to say thank you so much for joining us. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to Ed Evarts at Excelius.com. You can find him on LinkedIn and Facebook. Check out his books, Drive Your Career, 9 High-Impact ways, to take responsibility for your own success. Get those 9 tips. And then his other book, Raise Your Visibility and Value, Uncover the Lost Area of Connection on the Job. Highly encourage you to reach out to Ed. You can go to Excelius.com. You can listen and learn more about his podcast at BeBraveAtWork.com. You can go check that out. And there's one of the best things, especially if you're in a funk or you're stuck or you're trying to figure out what that next step is to talk to someone else who's been there, who's done that. And Ed has been there and he's done that. So I highly encourage you to reach out to him to learn a little bit more on what you can do to better your position today. If you'd like to see other programs or other episodes very similar to this, or actually not similar to this, but helping you stop the bottleneck in your business, you can learn how you can break through that bottleneck by going to Bottleneck.Online/BTV. That stands for Bottleneck Television. And as we said a little bit earlier, I did go through the process of writing a book. It's called Quit Repeating Yourself, How Today's Leaders Are Using Systems and Processes to Grow Their Business the Right Way. You can go learn more by visiting quitrepeatingyourself.com. Only after you go and check out Extelius.com. And a quick update here. Just want to let you know we're supporting the Team Seas Challenge. If you get a chance, go to teamseas.org. They're on a mission by the midnight of January 1st to raise $30 million. For each dollar they raise, they're going to be extracting 1 pound of trash from our world's beaches, rivers, and oceans. So go support them. It's for a really good cause. Go check them out. That's teamseas.org. If you missed my recent conversation, I talked with Deborah Coviello, and we had a nice conversation about why can't everyone be a high performer. She's the founder of Illumination Partners, and we had a really interesting conversation there. So go check that out. Coming soon, I'm going to be talking with Edwin Dearborn. He's the executive consultations of Branded Shareables. That's coming up Wednesday, December 8th, 2 p.m. Central. That's coming soon to your earbuds, and I'm really excited about that. And one thing I have to share with you before we wrap this up, my assistant Raina will kill me if I don't mention this. This is a note, and she said, Jamie, starting December 8th, we will be having our Live with Bottleneck once a week. Thank you. On Wednesdays. So no more Tuesdays and Thursdays. It will be on Wednesday. So letting everybody know that in the YouTube world, LinkedIn, Facebook, or anywhere you're watching this. Thank you so much again for tuning in today. Don't forget, create your own ripple. We will talk with you soon. Hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving as of the time of this recording. And yeah, have a good one. We'll talk to you soon. We'll see you.